The story of Albus and Ecclesia continues with the emergence of the Bestial Lubellion. The bestial theme is full of terrifying monsters your opponent can never escape from. The basic bestial monsters can be summoned with ease, sometimes even during your opponent's turn, as long as there is either a light or dark monster in either graveyard for them to banish. Play them all together as their own strategy, or with other branded options, or you can even include them in your Dragon Link deck. Or pick and choose the ones you like to incorporate into the deck or side deck you already have to help counter other light and dark based themes that might need cards in the graveyard, like for example tier elements or even sprites. One of the biggest advantages of the bestial strategy is the ability to summon a bunch of dragons to the field while banishing key monsters from the opponent's graveyard. So solely based on, let's say, the visual image or the card images, they are fantastic. They're dragon types, right? Most of the time they are fantastic, but looking at the bestial cards, I already read their effects, they definitely have big potential to either be main decked and definitely be side decked. So a couple of new monsters, one new spell and one new trap. So let's start off with the first monster, Bestial Magnamut. If your opponent is going first, Bestial Magnamut is one you definitely want to see in your opening hand. Not only can you special summon it during your opponent's turn if they have a monster on the field, if you time it right, you can even disrupt their strategy by banishing a key monster from their graveyard. Then, during the end phase, you can add the Bestial Lubellion, for example, to your hand, or even Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, or any other dragon you might need to start your turn off based on your hand. If you summon it on your own turn, you can add a bestial monster that will be ready to summon during your opponent's turn. I feel from all the bestial cards, Magnamut is either going to be a main deck staple or definitely a side deck staple, seeing that again the current top tier decks are either Sprite or Tier Elements, mainly, right? But again, dark and some light attribute based decks. So let's go to the second one, the second bestial monster, which is Bestial Saronir. Saronir is a great facilitator for opening up access to, for example, a branded spell or trap that you can set back to the field from the graveyard with Despian Tragedy. For example, putting more light or dark monsters you need in order to summon more bestial monsters from your hands, or even sending the Bestial Lubellion or the Bestial Alba, which both have built-in ways to be special summoned from the graveyard. So Saronir on its own basically is a foolish burial. So again, fantastic, since if current nowadays you're relying on graveyard heavy oriented decks or monsters, or at least with this archetype you definitely want light or dark monsters in your graveyard or either your opponent's graveyard, then Saronir can definitely get that roll, or the ball rolling to get more light and darks in the graveyard. Plus, very similar to Magnamut earlier, it also has that special summoning capability, so again, a fantastic card. The third one is also probably going to be main deck worthy next to Magnamut as well, but I'm not sure. Magnamut might feel as a 3 of staple either main or side deck, while the next one I feel is just fine either as a 1 or 2 of. So we're talking about Bestial Druys. If you're looking to pack just a few bestial monsters to capitalize on the all well-known DD Crow-alike effect, Bestial Druys is one you definitely want to check out. Druys can send a special summoned monster from the opponent's field to the graveyard, something basically almost any deck wants to do. Add it to your hand from the effect of, for example, Bestial Magnamut or the Bestial Lubellion, and try to lead off your plays with Druys, for example. If you're going first and can get access to Branded Beast, during your opponent's turn you can tribute Druys to destroy a card with Beast and then send an opponent's monster with Druys. So again, it's removal. You have Magnamut to search, for example, during the end phase. You have Lubellion, the Thunder Dragon one, the Necros of Brionek one, discard to search. And then you have Druys, which is basically disruption, removal. Again, fantastic. But now, the next one is going to be probably a crucial one, especially if you want to focus on, let's say, a main deck Bestial theme deck, or even maybe a hybrid with mill decks like, for example, tier elements. So the next one we have a secret rare, which is going to be the Bestial Lubellion. Similar to Necros of Brionek, you can send the Bestial Lubellion from your hand to the graveyard to add any of your bestial monsters from your deck to your hand. You can then banish Lubellion from the graveyard, since it's a light, enabling your other bestial monsters to be summoned right away. But if you keep it in the graveyard, you can summon it back to the field simply by tributing a bestial monster. The level 6 bestial monsters have effects that trigger if they are sent to the graveyard, so definitely don't be afraid to tribute them off. Being able to place, for example, a continuous Brandon spell or trap every turn opens up so many possibilities with both old and new Brandon cards. Like, for example, getting extra draws and summons from Brandon Regained, more of that soon, or protecting your fusion summons with Brandon Lost. So short set, Lubellion is a fantastic card. You definitely, let's say going first, you definitely want to open with that one, this card, to search the bestial card / well, monster you want to have in that specific game situation. But on its own, it's a light, so it can, be used to be banished from the other bestial monsters. Or, like Alba, the one we'll discuss next, it also has the capability to special summon itself to again keep the pressure on your opponent. So this is definitely going to be a fantastic card. Secret rare as well. But next up, I guess we have this archetype's boss monster, if you know what I mean. And that's the Bestial Alba. It's a powerhouse of a boss monster for the bestial theme. If your opponent has a strategy that heavily relies on the ritual monsters or the extra deck, then the Bestial Alba might prove to be quite troublesome. Even if your opponent does manage to get it off of the field, it will banish all of the face down cards in the extra deck until your opponent's end phase, so basically shutting them down for the rest of the turn. Once you get the Bestial Alba in the graveyard, you can keep summoning it back to the field as long as you have 2 bestial monsters to tribute. So basically, if you're playing a pure bestial deck, you can definitely have room for this one. But like for now, if you're looking at, like for example, tier elements or sprites, there is hardly any room to incorporate other cards, other non-engine cards. I'm looking at hand traps, for example, but the bestial cards, the monsters, you can basically see them as upgraded DD crows. So you definitely want to find some space for these, like Magnamut, for example. Maybe Lubellion? I'm not sure about Alba. Probably not, since again, space is really tight in these decks. Next up, we have a very similar card to the Ecclesia, the ones we know from Sword Soul, right? Let's take a look. Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. This new tuner monster works directly with Fallen of Albus and has a built-in polymerization effect, making both synchro and fusion summons with a breeze. The on-field effect to fusion summon is a quick effect, so you can leave it on the field until you are ready to use her effect. You don't have to summon a monster that mentions Albus as material, so you're free to summon, for example, Guardian Chimera. During the end phase, Cartesia gets to go back to your hand if a fusion monster was sent to the graveyard, allowing for fantastic follow-up plays. If you are planning on using the bestial theme alongside the Brandon strategy, you're definitely going to want to make sure you're including Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. So very similar to Ecclesia and her role in like let's say a Sword Soul deck, Blazing Cartesia definitely could serve that role for like an Albus based fusion deck, synchro fusion deck, mainly fusions. So it depends. If you're focusing on fusions, definitely take a look at Blazing Cartesia herself. So 2 cards left, one continuous spell, a Brandon one, and the Brandon continuous trap. And small thing, they are solid as well. So let's start off with the continuous spell first. And that's Brandon Regained. Brandon Regained lets you put the monster you banish, when like for example summoning a bestial monster, back into the deck, and that draws you a fresh card. So it's basically a +1 every turn, you know what I mean, an upstart goblin every turn. The second effect though, it's basically a monster reborn. So the second effect of Brandon Regained isn't also once per turn by name, so each copy you control can use its effect once per turn, but only one of them in each chain. So if you have multiple copies face up, you will have to be able to use the effect to special summon a bestial monster with each one. So just one per monster your opponent normal or special summons. So short set, this new branded continuous spell is again fantastic. It's searchable as well, that's super important, probably just fine as a one-off. And you know, as long as your opponent does not destroy it or get rid of it, it will basically be a +1 every turn, you know, netting you an extra draw. Again, fantastic. But that's not all. So every time your opponent summons a monster, for example, again once per turn, you can reborn something from the graveyard. So short set, this continuous spell is also fantastic. So one card left, and that's their new trap card. That's Branded Beast. Being able to tribute one of your dragons to destroy any card gives you access or an easy access spot removal for troublesome cards. It's a continuous trap, so even if your opponent tries to layer protection over a card like Mystic Mine, you can keep using this card every turn until you succeed. The bonus effect of being able to place a continuous branded spell or trap in your graveyard is just the icing on the cake. Even though you lose a dragon from the field, it fills up the graveyard to help facilitate, you know, more bestial summons. How strong are the new bestial cards? It's very easy, they are superb. So recently, our latest set, we had Power of the Elements. Now we have our next set, the Darkwing Blast, also with superb themes, superb new cards and highly splashable cards. But looking at the bestial cards and the bestial theme, like for your sneak preview for example, or if you want to get packs, you definitely need to check out the bestial cards or try to get, like, for example, Magnamut, Lubellion, for example. Those are fantastic. Heavily main deck worthy, if not side deck worthy. It somewhat depends on the format, like heavily, you know, dark focused or light focused deck. But nowadays we have tier elements and sprite, and to some extent, you know, Exo Sisters as well. But against those decks, those top tier decks currently, the bestial archetype, our cards, they are fantastic. So with the set, I'm definitely looking forward to these ones. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a comment or like if you enjoyed the video. Riddim signing out. Peace.